Joining us now, NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans, NBC News chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles, and Punchbowl News co-founder and MSNBC political contributor Jake Sherman. So, Ryan, bring us to the Hill today. What did Donald Trump get out of this meeting?
Well, it's clear, Katie, that he hoped that he was going to be able to close the deal today, that he was going to be able to walk into that room and look at the dispirited factions of the Republican caucus and tell them the time for fighting is over. Get out of your corners, come to the floor and vote yes. And while there is some signs that he may have moved the needle more in that direction, he has by no means closed the deal. There are a number of House Republicans, both on the conservative side of the ledger and those more moderate Republicans from blue states that are worried about the state and local tax deduction, who are still no votes and still want to see demonstrable changes in this bill before they're ready to vote yes. This despite Trump in that meeting specifically calling them out, specifically telling them that the time for grandstanding was over and that they all needed to come together and basically all give a little bit to get to a place where this bill could be passed and over the finish line. Now, what's interesting is the dynamic that you see playing out from these Republican members as they exited that meeting. They're not necessarily bucking Trump. They're not saying that Trump is not the reason that they're going to vote yes, but they're instead putting that responsibility on the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, to tweak the package in a way that can make them feel comfortable voting yes so that they can then do what Trump is asking them to do. So while Trump may have moved things in the right direction, it's by no means a done deal. And there's a lot of work that needs to happen between now and the deadline, the self-imposed deadline that the speakers put on them to get this done before the Memorial holiday. Katie.
Hey, Jake, how did Mike Lawler respond to being called out by name?
I don't think he's happy, and here's why he's probably not happy. Trump campaigned on getting rid of the SALT problem. He said it bluntly, Katie. There's no ambiguity at his rally in September, I believe it was, in Nassau Coliseum, a rally that I believe Nick LaLota, one of the SALT people, attended and was a big rally, you'll remember, Katie, back in the campaign season. I could write a book. I won't, but I could write a book on how this has been mishandled. The SALT issue was, Katie, from the beginning, one of the earliest issues brought up by a significant block of House Republicans. All the other things are more complex, dealing with the funding of Medicaid and equally important and equally charged and all those things. But if I were the leadership looking back at this, you could have built this entire bill with the idea that you would have to do something big on SALT, because they said it. On Trump, Katie, it just shows you, I mean, time and time again, that loyalty doesn't mean that much to him, from him, meaning the SALT, he wouldn't have a Republican House if it weren't for the SALT caucus, for the most part. And the HFC, excuse me, has been his most ardent defenders throughout everything. And on their two issues, he not only went against them, but publicly embarrassed them. And it's a little bit too early to know the immediate impact. I do think, though, that the SALT folks are going to dig in more. And we're watching in about, actually 5 minutes ago, there was supposed to be a meeting between Mike Johnson, and the SALT caucus. We'll have to see how that goes, because, again, this bill is coming before the Rules Committee tomorrow morning at 1 a.m. They want to get this on the floor tomorrow. They're having some problems, actually, right now that I'm monitoring on the House floor, a provision that allows them to bring up a bill the same day it passes the Rules Committee. That they're losing that vote right now. So I'm going to go watch it in a minute. That would hamper their ability. But, this is a gigantic bill, and there are still not dozens, but a half a dozen issues that are open. That is, not unheard of, but very unusual.
Yeah, just to kind of go at this a little bit longer, I know that you say you're not quite sure how the Salters are going to react to this, but I wonder if there is a feeling in Congress that among Republicans that they can take a stand more. They have more leeway to hew to their beliefs, what they campaigned on, their own constituencies, not just Donald Trump. And is part of that because they see Trump perhaps weakening? Do they see Elon Musk going out there and saying he's not going to spend big on campaigns? Is this a moment where they feel like they have some runway?
They feel like they have agency for sure, but I want to just remind you, Katie, and I was thinking about this morning when I was texting with somebody who served on the Republican side in the first Trump administration. Trump has been very ineffective when trying to get people to vote for things when he does these visits to the Hill. I can think of 3 instances. The health care bill, which obviously did not go anywhere. And then we had a series of bills, immigration bills in the first Trump administration that were coined Goodlatte and Goodlatte 2, named after Bob Goodlatte, who was then the chair of the Judiciary Committee. I know this is in the weeds, but he came up here to sell one of those bills or both of those bills, and neither of them went anywhere. But yes, I do feel like because this is all in one bill, which Mike Johnson said needed to be the case, people feel like this is their only shot at getting things the way they want them to be, and they need to establish what they think is the strongest position going into the Senate. And that is why on SALT, a provision that could get watered down in the Senate, Medicaid, which will get watered down in the Senate, IRA, which will get changed in the Senate, they feel like they have to take their stand now.
Let's talk about Medicaid, Christine.
Sure.
There's a lot of Medicaid cuts in this bill.
Yep.
Donald Trump doesn't want them to touch Medicaid, apparently. If things stand and say the House Freedom Caucus gets their way, because, again, everything is still in flux, what does Medicaid look like after this bill?
Well, it plays into this narrative that this bill blows up the deficit further. It makes rich people richer, gives more money to people who have money and less to people who need something. And it fits into sort of that narrative. It would tighten eligibility. It would speed up. Right now in this bill, it's got work requirements for Medicaid starting in 2029. There are some hardliners who really want that to be earlier. They want cuts to these programs quickly, food programs and the like. I mean, this is the worldview, you know, that this is not a nanny state that's just exploded over the past decade.
They believe it helps people
Exactly.
not work. It de-incentivizes them.
Exactly.
Disincentivizes them from getting up and doing something. That's their belief.
That's their belief. But when you look at the totality of what is on the table right now, it's clearly cementing tax cuts and tax breaks for companies and high earners and middle income earners as well. But then you pay for it on the other end.
Do we have a sense of how it balances out? Like, who really ends up winning in this? I know the Democrats are going to argue the wealthy win. What does the analysis show us?
So there's all kinds of different budget scoring on this. And most of it right down the middle is saying that it benefits people who have more money the most. And it cuts away at the safety net. I mean, that's what
Not to mention that tariffs are, by the way, hurting people who
right.
are lower
this
incomes.
This is just right down the middle.
Consumption tax.
But what you hear from Republicans is they'll say, oh, well, that doesn't count the fact that this is going to explode the economy. We've heard this before, right? Where it's going to explode the economy.
Trickle-down economics.
The amazing growth of the American economy is going to make up for any losses somewhere else. So you hear that. You also hear that the president's priorities are still in here. And budget experts are kind of think many of these are dubious and expensive, but, you know, no overtime taxes, no taxes on tips, raising the standard deduction for seniors because the president had said he wanted to not tax Social Security. So there's something in there. So there's a lot of these things so that the Republicans can say, no, we're helping the middle class. We're helping the middle class. But the scorers look at this. I mean, this headline here, GOP tax bill may hurt the lowest earners and help the richest. I mean, that's been kind of the analysis from the budget scorers.
Ryan, this is what Senator Hawley has been arguing, and you can't call Hawley a progressive, but he is saying, who do you think the Republican voters are now? Republican voters are no longer these fiscal hawks that they used to be. They're not Reagan fiscal hawks. Republican voters are now working class folks who need a break. Don't take Medicaid from them. Don't give a tax break to the wealthy on the backs of the working class people who put us into office. Is that resonating at all?
Well, the way that Donald Trump is answering that exact question, and he answered that exact question during the press conference that he had following this meeting that I was a part of, was that their analysis of this is wrong. He argues that no one is going to lose their Medicaid benefits as a result of this restructuring. He takes it even a step further and argues that the reforms that they're going to make to Medicaid are going to make the program stronger and that there will be more benefits available to those who need it the most. You cannot find an independent analysis that backs up that claim. It is based on a lot of hope and wish, not necessarily hard facts and tangible proof that that's the way that this process is going to play itself out. But that's one of the ways that Donald Trump has been very successful as a politician, by just promising the world and then never in a position where he gets called out on not making good on those promises. And in this situation, in this particular bill, the receipts are going to come due long after he's out of office. Many of these cuts are not going to really take effect in a meaningful and substantive way until he's long out of office. And so it's easy for him to promise the world to get all these things he wants in terms of the big tax cuts that he's looking for, the extension of the tax cuts that he initially put into place, getting rid of taxes on Social Security overtime and in tips. He can get all that right away and then not have to worry about the cuts because he will no longer be in office. And so that's one of the things that Democrats are really trying to highlight and hone in on. And there are a few Republicans, like Josh Hawley, for instance, who are going to be around a lot longer that are going to have to deal with the consequences of this that could make it difficult for him to get this bill ultimately passed.